More fallout today from the new king of Saudi Arabia's decision not to attend the president's Gulf summit just a few days from now, as other Arab monarchs seem to be following his lead, because right now only two other heads of Gulf states are actually attending. And this is seen by some as a blow to the White House's efforts to help build Arab support for a potential Iran nuclear deal. Ambassador Robert Jordan is the author of the upcoming book, Desert Diplomat. He's also the former U.S. ambassador to Saudi Arabia and the diplomat in residence at Southern Methodist University. And joins us now. A good person to have on this topic, Ambassador. Nice to have you back on the program.
Hi, Jenna.
The New York Times has an interesting headline today, and I'd just like to read that for our viewers. If we could go ahead and put that up on the screen now. It talks about the marriage between Saudi Arabia and the United States being adrift. Would you describe it the same way?
Well, it's not quite time for a divorce, but I think some marriage counseling might be in order, Jenna.
And what would that do? What is the nature of our relationship?
Well, this has been a slow-moving train wreck for several years. When Hosni Mubarak was thrown over the side as the head of the Egyptian government, President Obama said that it was time for him to go, that he wanted to be on the right side of history. We've seen a total chaos in the Arab Spring that has followed. The Gulf monarchs were very concerned at the president's failure to follow through on his threats of at least minimal military action against Bashar Assad when he used chemical weapons. And now we have this Iran nuclear deal, which suggests that the Americans are prepared to turn their backs on the Gulf monarchs and try to develop a closer relationship with Iran. This creates two problems at a minimum. First, it frees up sanctions money in terms of billions of dollars that can then be used against these Gulf monarchies to subvert them and to encircle them with a Shiite crescent throughout the Middle East. Second, it creates the potential for nuclear activity by Iran in a way that cannot be properly policed or enforced. The sanctions cannot be properly reapplied. And this gives Iran enormous leverage and changes the balance of power in the Middle East. So they're tremendously concerned about all this, and I think they now have failed to receive sufficient security guarantees, what we would call deliverables, for attending this summit, and they don't really want to go back to their populations empty-handed. So this creates a real problem for them in terms of the optics of coming to a senior head of state summit and then coming back with very little.
Well, the Saudis are saying, listen, we have the Crown Prince, the Deputy Crown Prince attending the event. There are those that are unnamed, and newspapers today saying, listen, these are the guys that are really running the country anyway, so it's okay that the head guy is not there. What's your take on it?
Well, I think it would come as news to King Salman that he's not really running the country. He is a new king. He was the Crown Prince until very few months ago. He was also the Minister of Defense. He has a lot of expertise, and this was touted as a senior head of state summit, not a ministerial summit. So, yes, Prince Mohammed bin Nayef, the Crown Prince, is a highly able individual who I think will someday be king and is quite capable of handling his responsibilities. But that's not what this summit was supposed to be about. This was supposed to be the heads of state who could come here from our head of state about the most fundamental issues affecting our relationships in the Middle East.
Let's talk about those issues as well, because there certainly are a lot of tentacles intertwined, if you will, between, for example, the Saudis and the United States. The fighter jets the Saudis are using to bomb Yemen are our fighter jets. In fact, we have to give them supply parts. So we have that relationship still with them, and the relationship has changed somewhat, Ambassador, hasn't it, with the development of our oil market here in the United States and a question about what our true goals are in the Middle East. What exactly do we need from the Saudis today? If you can look back on your time as ambassador there in the early 2000s to 2015 now, what exactly do we need from our relationship with the Saudis? Why does it remain so important?
Well, we certainly don't have the same values, and in many ways we have a bit more economic independence from them. But in many ways we continue to have the same fundamental national interests. Fighting terrorism. Our counterterrorism efforts with the Saudis are very, very important right now and have been fairly successful. Providing a credibility with the Muslim world. The Saudis are the guardians of the two holy mosques in Mecca and Medina. They have enormous credibility throughout the Muslim world. They provide enormous leadership.
Is that what we need from them? Does our relationship with them somehow give us some credibility in the Middle East, or does it not?
Well, I think you can argue both sides of that, but I think they have been a pretty steadfast ally in fighting Islamist extremism, at least in terms of the actual kinetic terrorist activity. We would like for them to be less active in propagating extremist ideology, and have had a lot of conversations with them about that. I think that is showing some progress, but they've got a long way to go on that front. But they have a geographic importance to us. You can't project power in the Middle East without overflying Saudi Arabia. We have military bases in Bahrain, which is essentially a client state of Saudi Arabia. Our Fifth Fleet Naval Force is there. And so we have an enormous 65-year-old relationship with the Saudis that is troubled at the moment. It does need some attention, but it is something that I think we've got to remember is in our national interest. Who else will be our major ally in the Middle East right now? I don't think there's going to be another major ally for us.
Well, it's an interesting thing to think about. Again, it goes back to our conversation with KT McFarland about geography and why sometimes out of everything, the geography really matters, and we can't forget about that, no matter how good our technology is. Ambassador, nice to have you on the program again. We appreciate it very much.
Good. Thank you, John.